Hello and welcome to the Polish Cinema for Beginners podcast, a show around and about Polish cinema. My name is Pranav and I've been living in Poland for about 4 to 5 years and I am a beginner in Polish cinema. So I thought it would be a great chance to explore Polish cinema then. This episode is based on a movie called Ashes and Diamonds, or Popiół i Diament in Polish, directed by Andrzej Wajda. The episode has 2 halves. The first sets up the scene and introduces the movie, followed by a short break where you can pause and go watch the movie, and then a discussion about the movie itself. So without further ado, I will take this moment to introduce our guest for today, Adam Kruk, who is a very renowned and well-known film critic, film journalist. He's also an academic. He's doing his PhD in the University of Wrocław. He's been in the jury of multiple festivals, including some of the big ones like Mar del Plata, and he's also in the panelist for the Golden Globes. I am so happy to have you here today, Adam. Hello.
Hello, Pranav. Always pleasure to talk to you.
How's it going? How many pierogi have you had in the last week?
In the last week, well, I think it was 8, so just one portion, but it was satisfying. I feel
good.
Polish after this meal.
Is this, what kind of pierogi do you like? What is your favorite?
My favorite is probably the classic, so cabbage and mushrooms.
Okay.
But not pieczarki, not champignons. It has to be like the wild mushrooms from the forest. Then it tastes properly.
Well, speaking of that, I guess we don't have much room to talk about other stuff today. Let's get on to our podcast. So today we'll be talking about Popiół i Diament. This is big time, it's like one of the most iconic Polish movies. I chose this because that's like almost one of the first names I'd heard of a movie in Polish cinema when I came here. And it's also the year of Wajda because we're celebrating his 100th birth anniversary and of course his 10th death anniversary, and he's had a very illustrious career, and he's also been featured in like some of the great directors of all time, and also some of the great directors' favorites also, considering he was on Scorsese's list of Polish masterpieces. So yeah, what do you think of the movie? Is it a good choice?
Well, it's a must-watch for sure. It's even Wajda once said that if he would have to choose one movie of his long filmography, it would be Ashes and Diamonds, and it's also very Polish movie. So we will talk about that, and very iconic too. Some scenes are like they're on the postcards because they're so iconic. So it's a great choice. I don't know if it dated. For sure, it dated a little, but for those who take pleasure in watching classical movies, this is for sure gonna be an experience.
Yeah, one of the things that why the movie caught my eye is it is in Scorsese's list of Polish masterpieces, and also anytime I heard about Polish directors, it would be Wajda, whose name would be probably first, either Wajda or Kieślowski. And so let's get into the movie itself. So the plot starts off, it's right after the end of the Second World War, I think even the night after. So what is happening in Poland at the time?
Yeah, it's the day the World War II was officially ended. But of course, people were aware of that. Were aware for some time that the war is ending, and not only in Poland but in whole Europe. And the war was totally devastating for whole Europe. So people were hungry. People were tired of people dying around, and they were craving for peace. Yes, yet if you lived in the eastern part of Europe, it wasn't that simple, because after the German occupation in Poland, the Nazi occupation, it was replaced right after the Second World War by Soviet occupation. So the people, the heroes of the movie are kind of in dilemma whether they should continue fighting fighting, just not against Germans this time, but against the new Soviet regime. Soviet and Polish too. There were Polish communists who were ready to take over the country, and as we know from history, they actually did. So, and the other need was just to live their life, to have to fall in love, to work, and to not to die. And this movie actually captures this very moment when people were forced to take a decision how to live their life after the war ended.
Yeah, it's a very tough decision. Like you mentioned, the protagonists, they were confused about which side of the war they were on. So the protagonist, it was Maciej, who was the main character, and Andrzej. They're, I'd say, the two main protagonists. They're part of the National Army and the Home Army, yeah. And I read when I was doing my research about the movie that there was even times where the Home Army were collaborating with German troops to get ammunition to fight the Soviets, just because they wanted liberation of like Poland from any occupation. And yeah, that brings us to the protagonists themselves who are trying to fight this war. Maciej is played by Zbigniew Cybulski, who is...
Good pronunciation.
Thank you so much. Zbigniew Cybulski is supposedly also one of the most iconic actors, from what I've heard. Is that right?
Yeah, he was. He still is. If you see his image with this dark glasses, with his hairstyle, with the jacket he's wearing, he was a little bit like he was considered like Polish James Dean, because he looked quite fancy. He looked quite rebellious, and that was the type of roles he would take. And even if you look at Ashes and Diamonds, the guy looks very modern, very contemporary. So even his glasses, I don't think anyone would wear them in 45 when the action takes place. But Wajda decided to have this character who would represent a young generation, different lifestyle, and put it in this war context. Also because, like, for many years, it was impossible to talk about this very moment, this experience. So now, when Wajda got finally a chance to tell this story, well, he had to make it present in a way, not so. It's actually like a history film, because the action takes place like almost like 15 years earlier, but it feels like very contemporary, and maybe in a way it still is vital. And of course, you have this notion of watching black and white movie from the period, but Cybulski himself, I think the way he plays is very different from many other characters in the movie.
I think so, yeah. He looks visually very different. Also, one thing I noticed, and we will get to this later, that the sort of antagonist, which is Sztuka, so the plot is basically the protagonists are trying to assassinate Sztuka, who is a member of the Communist Party.
Yeah, it's a regional leader who is chosen to establish a new power, communist power in this region, actually played by Wrocław.
Yeah. And so Sztuka, I'm curious actually, because the movie was also released in 1958, and so that was a time where the Soviet powers had already taken over. And when you see the protagonists, who are supposed to be the good guys, trying to kill someone who is from the Soviet government, who is portrayed as a bad guy.
But he's not portrayed as a bad guy.
We can get into that in
after. Okay.
Yeah. Not to give any big spoilers, but yeah. There wasn't a plot to assassinate this, and like the focus was on the person from the Home Army. So I wonder, do you know anything about the release of the movie, and like how was it How was it? How was the movie actually released? Like, was it tough to put it out, or was there some like big pushbacks against Wajda?
I mean, to kind of fully understand it, you have to remember 53. I mean, the Stalin died in 53, and all this heavy Stalinism that was spread not only in Soviet Union but also at the satellite countries such as Poland's People's Republic. They were slowly, especially from 56, when Khrushchev, the new leader, gave his famous speech about actually Stalin not being such a lovely person. Then it was possible to kind of criticize a little, of course, the regime. And Ashes and Diamonds, but also other films from this time, they were called later a Polish film school. They could talk more freely, could actually do some historical and social criticism. But it wouldn't be possible, let's say, in 52. So that was the very specific moment when such movies were possible. And Wajda, of course, used this moment. Of course, you see that like it's not a criticism towards communism. He actually shows the good and bad sides of every part of this picture. But you have like this old nobility, for instance, which represent the pre-war Poland, and they're actually pretty nasty in the movie. So actually Wajda was like considered for like some right-wing people as communists, and criticized for not being brave enough, not being anti-commie enough. So the topic of history is touchy, is difficult, but except of the politics, I think the most important thing in Ashes and Diamonds are the images. Like, you don't need to fully understand the nuances of history and politics in Central or Eastern Europe, but like the mastery of Wajda is that he kind of make you feel the notion of being trapped by history, but by the place you're born in, and maybe your faith.
It's very interesting. I do think like Wajda was very masterful. Like the first time I saw this movie, I was just like, this is amazing, even though I had zero context about it. And the second time I watched it was recently, and I had known about the context, and it did add some layer. But even without it, I think the movie is just beautiful. So yeah, it follows the protagonist having a plot to assassinate Stuka. And in the meantime, there's a bunch of other things happening. The main protagonist, he has some decisions to make, and it is probably that's where the title of the movie comes from, like whether his decisions will lead to ashes or diamonds. So one thing before we get to the movie, when someone's listening to this right now, what should they look out for when they watch the movie?
I think you should just relax and enjoy the images, which are amazing. The DOP was Jerzy Wójcik. He was basically a genius. He also shot the Mother Joan of Angels or Nobody's Calling, so other very classics of this period. And basically you can just look at it as a visual poetry, and some scenes are actually super powerful, and Well, the film is shown in the film schools to make students learn how to tell stories with images. Of course, dialogues are important too, but Ashes and Diamonds is like a great example of how to tell stories with images, which are powerful, which stays, and which can be very symbolic too, which we can discuss later.
Yeah, it's true. Some of the scenes I still can't get out of my head right now. I think they're just incredible and so beautiful to look at.
So, after this introduction to the film, now's the chance for you, the listener, to pause the episode, go see the film, and come back to us when you're done. If you're not going to be watching the film right now, and if you haven't seen it, the following part will contain spoilers. Miłego seansu. This podcast is a part of Polish Cinema for Beginners, a project by the Wrocław Film Foundation, bringing Polish cinema closer to international audiences. It's co-produced by Academic Radio LUZ, with special thanks to their Department of Culture.
All right, so Adam, we just watched the movie Ashes and Diamonds within the break. What do you think of it, first of all? My first question actually would be, what is the most Polish thing about the movie?
Well, the most Polish thing about the movie is the final Polonaise by Chopin. Like you don't have any other composer as Polish as Chopin. You can feel it every 5 years when there's a Chopin competition in Poland, and you have Chopin's music in every household. And here you have this also famous dance, Polonaise, that all the Polish teens are dancing when they are like graduating, before they are graduating their high school, and their ball called Matura. And we have like this final scene where Poles, different classes, different point views are dancing together Polonaise, which is quite maybe bitter too, but also very, very Polish. Wajda will come back to this motif later in Pantadeusz, for instance. So I think like this is, well, music, also before we hear the Czerwone Maki, so Red Poppies. It's a famous song from World War II that were supposed to encourage Polish soldiers to fight the enemy. So the music for sure is one of the Polish, like super Polish thing here
in the movie.
What was the most Polish thing for you?
Yeah, for me, I think it was the need for freedom. I think it's it felt very Polish because Poland, I know, has been under occupation like for centuries even, and I think the movie has a lot of, you can see it in the characters that like they have some decisions to make that are so personal, like should I choose to go for my love or should I choose the country? And like for someone in maybe today's age, I don't know if or maybe it's too general of a statement, but I don't think it would be that tough of a decision. But I do see that like, it being like, okay, I do need to give up sort of so many things that would really make me enjoy life. I don't know. When Maciek actually goes through with the assassination and he has the chance to like run away with this girl and he doesn't, he just goes through with the plan. And I think that sort of fight for freedom, I think for me was very Polish to see. And I think it's very amazing to see as well in the movie. I think the way it's portrayed is quite nice.
I think he's in a very tragic position because even if he would run away, he would be probably chased and persecuted by his home army colleagues, considered as a traitor, like he was supposed to deliver this. And he finally did. But you mentioned this like fighting for freedom, which might have no sense even, but still people do it, and it's a part of like we call it like a romantic tradition, and it's and you have like except for Chopin music, you have these quotes from Norwid. He was a Polish poet from Romanticism. They find this, the description in the empty church where they get this phrase about ashes and diamonds. So like you have a lot of this romanticism, which can be beautiful, but it can also be like a curse of Polish culture, because it can be useful during the war, but during the peace time, maybe it's more important to stop fighting with each other, to kind of build things together. It's also the question that the movie asks, I think.
Yeah, that since you mentioned like the church scene, I think that is just one of the many, many iconic scenes in there. Like even the church scene itself, like when he starts reciting the end of the poem, I think that was beautiful. When Maciek starts reciting the end of the poem. Also, right after when they go into this church to escape the rain, and they're talking, and on the camera you see like he's on one side and she's on the other side, and in the middle is the statue of Jesus that is just hanging upside down. I think it is so powerful and so beautiful.
It's totally crazy scene when you see this inverted crucifix, which is very symbolic, because like the world has just fallen apart during the wartime, and it might symbolize this, but maybe something else. We don't know. You have a horse in the in the church, so it's like super surreal. It can be. We know the exact church when they were shooting it in Wrocław, but it could be anywhere or like nowhere. It was like, it could be some afterlife. I think this scene also captures the mastery of Wajda, that he was able to create those scenes that seems so magical, so surreal, and have so many layers. And like you would have to use like 10 pages to describe what is happening there, and here you just have these images that are creating this strange atmosphere.
Yeah, the vibes of that scene was amazing. Any other scenes that you really enjoyed, like that are just stuck in your head?
I mean, there are
Which ones?
few that kind of make film history. Like for sure, the scene of assassination of Szczuka. Mm-hmm. This is like what's happening there. The guy just killed the other guy, and you have those fireworks, and they are like somehow united in this that scene, entwined in an embrace. Like why? Like it can show the unity of Polish people. We're not united, and they're still not united. Mm-hmm. So it's so like utopian even scene. So this for sure was very powerful.
It's amazing. Yeah, like I really like how like Maciek and Szczuka were interacting throughout the whole movie, because they had some
connection.
Yeah. Lighting each other cigarettes and stuff. Well, it was mostly Maciek lighting Szczuka's cigarette. And also that was interesting for me, like somehow that the fire, I feel like I do have I must admit, really bad memory, but the only other time I remember seeing fire in such a obvious or such a forward way was the scene, which I also really enjoyed, the scene with the czerwone maki, the red poppies of Monte Cassino, where they're lighting up the vodkas and they're talking about their comrades and their friends who died before them, and they light a vodka shot for each of their friend. And I think that kind of tied that together for me, that where fire is shown, there is some death involved.
Yeah, there are some, in a way, like between two worlds, between life and death. And they seem to prepare for that, but from the other hand, they want to live. And like these candles, of course, they are also a big part of Polish tradition. If you go to like All Saints Day to the Polish cemeteries, you would have like all those candles representing the souls that are somewhere else, let's say, now. And alcohol itself, it's a very big part of Polish culture, of course.
I would say that would be like the second most Polish thing about the movie for me. All the vodka that was consumed.
Yeah, they're like, the Polonaise scene when we're talking, like everyone is completely drunk. And if you see the character played by Bogumił Kobiela, who's like crazy drunk in one scene, basically ruining himself, his career. It's very Polish too, I agree.
Yeah. Also, speaking of like the whole death thing, I think the scene in the end where Maciek dies, I felt that it was very international, and I would like to get your take on it because, or at least from an Indian background, that seemed like I could connect with it because towards the end, Maciek, as he was running away from the soldiers or police or militia, I think, he was surrounded by the white sheets. And in India, for example, when someone dies, you cover them with a white sheet. And I thought that was very surreal and also like might have been symbolic as well. I don't know if you have the same symbolism in Poland. Do you?
I think that is rather considered with black. It's more connected with black color. But I think it can be, Wajda had a wide range of inspiration. He was trained as a painter. At the beginning before going to film school. So the visual aspect for him was super important. Like for me, myself, I would think like the movie is shot in black and white, but you have this scene when he's basically Maciek, Zbyszek Cybulski, when he's actually bleeding and he leaves this traces of blood at those white sheets. So you can imagine like red and white as a Polish flag, of course. And it's a super intense, beautiful scene. But what might be even more symbolic is after this like scene of running away and this white, this like field full of white sheets, then he's actually dying at the some dumpster, right? As he would be dying in the graveyard of history. So like nobody will care. And actually, there's this phenomenon of cursed soldiers. So the soldiers they didn't give up the weapon after Second World War, and basically they've been forgotten for many years now. Some people try to restore this memory, but so like that was in 1959. It must have been super intense also for Polish audience, for Polish people who were forced who were silenced about some topics because like the regime had its own policy.
Yeah, that makes sense. That whole death scene was like very beautiful as well. Like him, like you mentioned, in like a dumpster and like this. It looked like it was like the ruins of a building, and it was filmed in Wrocław. Do you know if that scene was filmed in Wrocław? Okay, it was very fascinating for me to see that as well. That like living in this city and seeing all these places that like right now they're like perfect, and you wouldn't really know if anything happened there. But in the movie you can see it's like completely just like flattened almost, and that was very cool to see.
Yeah, this final scenes were filmed like close to Nasyp, so now you can see it. Some moments, but now of course like Pod Nasypem is the vital place of many bars.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't look like that anymore, but some scenes were shot in Hotel Monopol, which of course also doesn't look today the way it looked in the movie, but it's still there. So if you want to take a walk around Wrocław using the location of Ashes and Diamonds, it's possible still.
Amazing. I would love to do that actually after this. Another thing that I also really liked is how, well, there's so many contrasts in the movie, I think, like about, mostly about life and death, but also like, about life and death when I say, I also mean the times where Maciek is faced by the, like, repercussions of his actions, where he's staying in his room in Hotel Monopol, and the window opposite him is the wife of one of the people he accidentally killed in the beginning of the movie. And then later when they're in this like surreal church scene, there is also, the two people he actually killed, the bodies, their corpses. And I think that was also a very fascinating part, that he's surrounded by his own reality, and it's all happening in one day. I think it must have been so scary, and I wonder like that if that maybe led to his indecision at some point, like when he's talking to Andrzej and he's like, oh my God, what do? I want to leave. I want to be done with this. So I think it was a very intense, like 24 hours.
It was like, come on, he just killed two innocent people. Like there are no good and bads in this movie. Like you mentioned at some point that he's supposed to be like a good character. Oh, like he's like a killer. Like
exactly.
He's the one we could relate to, for sure. But it doesn't mean his decisions are good. And maybe, it's about fate and not having, being in a position that there's no good choice, just like a tragic one, like bad or worse. And we are lucky here and now that there's no war and we don't have to take such decision. But there are so many countries, and possibly
where it is a reality.
More and more where the movie can be contemporary, even in this worst tragic way.
Yeah, no, it is true. I agree. And on the more brighter side, I think the movie also had a lot of fun scenes where people were actually enjoying, and like coming back to the scene where he kills Szczuka, there's fireworks, people are celebrating, and in the end the Polonaise. I really like that. I also like, there is a lot of contrast in this movie of also that like being in such a state of just anxiety, let's say, that Maciek had, and just indecision, and everyone else around is like getting drunk, enjoying. There's a banquet happening, and I think it's really masterfully done. Is there anything else you wish to talk about in the movie that you really enjoyed?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I was enjoying it all way long, and I could watch it over and over again. It's a truly masterpiece. And I think you're right about this mix of joy and sadness. I mean, like Wajda was always more on the sadness part, but you have like this romance that is blooming between Maciek and Krysia, some erotic tension. And again, it's only true that during a wartime, people are actually make a lot of babies, and there's a big sexual tension around, because maybe in the times when you don't know how long you're gonna live, people want to live it to the fullest. Even Maciek is saying something in this candle vodka scene. That's okay. They're all dead, but what the hell of living we had. And no, I was talking once to the people that were fighting in the Arab Spring, and they said, okay, a lot of us dies, but that was the best time of our life because we were together, we were united, and we had something to live for, to die for, and I think also Ashes and Diamonds captures this moment, even if it's just like the last moment of that, because we don't see it, but we know that the reality will change very soon.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Like, throughout the watching the movie, you do feel very much what the characters are feeling. I think Wajda really captured all of that. Like when Maciek had the whole romance scene, except the part when he was flirting with Krisha, because that was a little cringe, I guess.
It's dated, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be appropriate these days.
Yeah, it was a little intense. But except all of that, like through the whole romance scenes and everything, like I think just the way it was portrayed, like the intimacy of that, and like Maciek just being, I don't know, he had a lot of energy, and like he was through that scene, through his romance, through his sort of just the moments where he's just contemplating on his decisions and what he has to do. I think like it's really captivating in the movie. I think like I couldn't take my eyes off it, first of all, and also I couldn't help but feel all these emotions. I think it's very powerful, and like rightfully so. I think Wajda has, like, even if it was just this one movie that he made, I think he would already be in the list of great directors for me. So yeah. And coming back to what we said in the beginning about like Stuka. No. Stuka portrayed as not so bad of a character. He's not like a typical antagonist, right? He is humanized. He is very like, okay, he has a son who died in the war, and yeah, I think that was very interesting as well. Do you think it was a decision for the release of the movie? Or do you think maybe Wajda would have portrayed it in a different way, that he would be like a very classical villain, and yeah, the plot would be just very like a classic heroic tale?
I mean, like the film is based on Jerzy Andrzejewski novels, so like Wajda took like the characters from there. And of course, it wouldn't be possible to portray a bad communist in the 50s. If you would see like the movies from the like deep Stalinism era from 49 till 54, let's say, you would have like strict rules you had to follow, and like all the communists had to be portrayed in a good way. So of course, I think it might be also that's like, otherwise probably the movie wouldn't be released. But it's also like, you know, people have different beliefs. It's not like, you know, all the right-wing people are wrong and all the left-wing people are bad, or the opposite. So like you have different and complex biographies and things that led people to such or other positions. Even in Ashes and Diamonds, you have this scene when Stuka, so the old commie, is meeting a friend, and they're singing like and listening to old songs from the Spanish Civil War. They were fighting against Franco. So it's also a beautiful story. So you see that it's not people, it's more like history, fate that divides people who at the core maybe are good, and just sometimes they do bad things.
It's a very powerful message. Like, it is, I guess, very relevant. Again, I think it's also very contemporary in that sense that, like, yeah, when you have these big divides that are happening, let's say, in today's society, it is nice and maybe refreshing to see someone that's like, okay, this is an antagonist, but are they a bad person? And you're not really sure watching the movie, that you think like, okay, this person also you can clearly see has lived their own life and they have their own experiences. And it is very humanizing, which I think is, it is a very good concept to have, that, you don't portray one side as evil and one side as good.
You see it in the best films. You see the Nida by Paweł Pawlikowski, very inspired by Ashes and Diamonds and other Polish film school movies, by the way. So, I mean, like, you cannot simplify. You can simplify the word, but it's not art. It's propaganda.
Yeah.
And if you want to make art, like, you have to show how complex the world is.
Amazing. So I think we can end the discussion with that. But I have one final question for you. Since you said the most Polish thing about the movie is the Polonaise, how much would you rate this movie out of 1 Polonaise to 10 Polonaise?
I mean, it's Ashes and Diamonds, so it can be only 10 Polonaise.
I agree very much with that. It's amazing. So with that, we have our wrap on the first episode of Polish Cinema for Beginners. This was very interesting, and I learned so much. And Adam, do you wish to leave the audience with a message?
Well, follow Polish cinema. Just recently we learned that new Paweł Pawlikowski movie will be in Cannes this year.
Oh, wow.
So, and he's one of the directors who's deeply rooted in Polish film school. So, he's the one to watch nowadays for sure.
Incredible. So with that, I will say thank you so much, Adam, for the episode, and thank you so much for coming today. This was amazing, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Thank you for listening, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. This was just the first episode, and there are more to come, once a month for now. Thanks to Adam Kruk for being a guest, Krystyna Szpunt and Aleksandra Kabala for producing, Szymon Lazar, Zofia Skutnik, and the Radio LUZ team for their studio, audio engineering, and editing, and Agnieszka Smutek for promo and communications from the Wrocław Film Foundation. Feel free to write to us with your thoughts at Polish Cinema on Instagram, and check out more of Radio LUZ at radio_luz, that's LUZ, and don't stop watching movies.